Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. After a 2-year-long hiatus and having lived in a virtual world for about 2 years, it's a pleasure to be back at RLS. I've been a RLS attendee right from the first RLS. It used to happen in NCPA long ago. So it's a pleasure to come back here, and I welcome all of you into the physical world once again. And what are we discussing? We're discussing the digital world, incidentally. Yeah, so we have an expert panel of specialists here, and it's a very diverse panel that we have here. We already have had a round of introduction, but we have the who's who from the fashion business. We have Manish here, and you can make out who Manish is. He's the true brand representative of Pepe in the denim outfit at the end. We have people from the fast food business. We have Sagar here. We have Swiss Knives being represented by Colonel Chandhoke. We have leather products. We have Rochita here. We have Dr. Mohan here. We have software solutions and logistics partners as well. So it's a very diverse and interesting set of people that we have on the panel here. Before we get into discussion, I just wish to highlight 5 specific points for the audience benefit. I think they are very important from a context-setting perspective. The first one being, in the digital world, trust is the most important aspect, and it's more important than anything else. One very interesting data point which I came across today morning, apparently over 81% of online shoppers feel anxious when shopping on a website they are not familiar with. And therefore, in the online and the digital world, trust must be built through informative product descriptions and accurate availability. Point number 1. Point number 2, today, everybody is on their phones. So one more data point, which is again very interesting. Close to 3.8 billion people, which is almost half the world's population, were using smartphones in 2021. And that number is going to probably reach 5 billion in 2022. That's the kind of penetration we're talking about on the digital front. Point number 3, automation is everywhere, right? So automated technologies such as robots and drones and automated checkouts, they are transforming retail. And I'll pick Vohuman's brains on that. But I'm told that drones can cut delivery costs by almost 86%. How that happens, I'm yet to hear that from Vohuman. I'm sure he'll throw some light on that. Last but not the least, customers are expecting a unified experience. Yeah, whether they buy online, they buy offline, the experience has to be unified. So that's one more imperative from a digital transformation perspective. So having said this 4 points as a context, let me jump straight away into the questions. And my first question to the entire panels, but I would like the brand owners to answer this first. Does your business and do you feel the need for digital-led business transformation? And if yes, why? Yeah, we can start with the brand owners and then we can come to the service providers, if I may call them so. Yeah. Rochita can start, being a lady.
Hello everyone, good evening. I'm Rochita Day. I'm representing Sreeleathers. I'll just give a context. It's a footwear retail chain based out of Calcutta.
Yeah, sorry. It would be nice if you can actually give a context of what your business is all about. I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that. Yeah.
So I'll just start with that. We are dealing with, we're focused mostly on producing durable products at an affordable price. So we're dealing with customers who are a lot more price sensitive. Now I'll answer your question. Is there a need for digital transformation? I think the future of retail is definitely blended. If it wasn't, when you look at an e-commerce giant like Amazon, when they had to develop a growth strategy at their peak, they decided to open up brick and mortar stores all across the US. Today, when we look at our consumers, most consumers, I wouldn't say all, but most consumers have a preference of maybe online or offline, but they will shop both. Offline for the experience and online for the convenience. So going forward, I would say there is definitely a need for digital transformation. But having said that, we all have to do it keeping our own strengths in mind. Me, for example, because I'm talking on behalf of Sreeleathers, I would say that because our headquarters is in Calcutta, I would look at geographic expansion mostly in East India. And because I have a warehousing facility in North India, I would also prefer geographic expansion in the North. Having said that, in West and South India, because we do not have any physical store presence, we would focus a lot more on our digital platform when we are catering to those consumers. Does that answer your question? Yes, there is a need, but I think based on every organization's individual strengths, that strategy has to be very individual to them.
So what I'm hearing you say is that expansion is the underlying need for you to look at digital transformation. That's what you're trying to say.
Yes, definitely technology does help in terms of scalability, but having said that, you want to grow at a rate that you can sustain. Like you don't want to grow at a rate that you cannot control as the brand owner or the managing director.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. Mohan,
I represent a global brand, Clarks, and initially, to answer your question straight away, footwear is something, we all from the old school, we believe that it's a touch and feel is important.
Yeah.
There were a lot of questions in our mind 3 years when we started the digital journey. Though in Europe and in US, we are very well established, and India is still early days for us. But let me tell you something, this COVID has taught us a lot of lessons, and it's not the retail players who shape the expectations. Let me put it this is the likes of Amazon, Netflix, and those are the guys, the seamless experience. Like you can watch it on the sitting in the drawing room, a movie, and then you feel tired, you go to the bed and you switch on your smartphone, you can continue with it, or you're late for work and you can continue in a car. So that's a kind of a seamless experience the customer is kind of looking forward today. And this retail, I feel the unified commerce is the vaccine for this retail COVID, to be very honest. So we have been able to kind of, in our business, unlearn whatever we did the previous years. And technology is the way forward. And let me tell you, from India's perspective, the most aspirational population, I wouldn't call it as tier 2 or tier 3, I would call it as emerging urban centers.
Right.
Live in this thing. Our sales, for example, in the e-commerce, almost 60-70% comes from the emerging urban centers. So for us, it may not be viable to open a store in a particular location. And we would reach out to those aspiring population by this digital commerce, I would say. So it's really very, very important. And we need to kind of completely rethink about our digital strategy, the way we do our business. And there are certain things also, like for example, which is relevant to India. One of the things which I want to highlight here, I've done some work, so I would like to highlight it. For example, the biggest returns in the digital space is the size not fitting, for example. Almost 22% of the returns on size not fitting. So we have evolved a technology which we are tested in Europe, and we need to kind of come into India, whereby you can kind of take 3D pictures of your foot and upload it in a site, which will straight away give you the nearest fit of our shoe.
Yeah.
So that way you can control, it's tested in Europe, so 99% reduction in returns on account of, so we need to kind of continuously rethink and innovate ourselves so that, we are aligned for the future. That's what I would like to say. It's really, digital is the way forward, and we need to really put our money and energy in creating a completely different organization. That's what I would like to say. Thank you.
Interesting. Captain Chandhoke, what is your take on this? How has Victorinox looked at it?
So you have mercilessly demoted me from Colonel Chandhoke to Captain Chandhoke.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry about it. I'm so sorry. My apologies.
But I love you as a person and a professional.
I'll go you a drink.
Couple of. So very good evening, everyone. Thanks for the introduction, the warm introduction, Hemant. A quick note about myself. I head Victorinox India, which is the Indian subsidiary of the Swiss brand. We make the Swiss Army knives and the kitchen knives and watches and travel gear and fragrances. An interesting question at an interesting time, Hemant, because this year also marks the launch of our aggressive 40-store plan in India after the 15-store presence there. And what I would like to add here is that there are 3 types basically of customer mindsets or customers that we could break this into, in my opinion. One is a necessity-based digital environment of shopping. There are customers who necessarily or have the need or they are very clear that they want to buy online. It has already been established. We are a kind of a matured online country today. Number two is customers who are comfortable, and this is an extra comfort. It's not necessary for them to buy online. They are of the tech migrator generation, like most of us are in this room, whatever I can see, who enjoy the comfort of technology. And number three is also a segment which the customer doesn't know that he or she wants it today, but there is some company who goes the extra mile or a brand and invents something to give an extra comfort to a customer and checks if he or she is happy. And if they are, it becomes a trend in no time and 50 brands are then doing that tech innovation.
Right.
So I believe if technology is a medium to bring comfort and, excuse me if I say that, to tap the vulnerability of the customer at a weak moment during the day to shop, and if technology is that medium to do that, smart businesses can't look away.
That's an interesting take, yeah.
Yeah, smart businesses
Exposing
can't
the
look away.
vulnerability and exploiting it possibly is another way of looking at it, yeah. Very interesting take on that, yeah. Carry on, sorry.
Yeah, so we are aggressively marrying technology in our journey in India and globally as well, and that goes much beyond a digital shopping experience and an app or an online. It goes much beyond even a customer connect. So that's the India journey for Victorinox. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sagar, Manish.
Well, yeah, hi, I'm Sagar. Brief introduction. People make good food, we make food good. Basically, I strongly believe that there's a major belly expansion happening in the country. And like people talk about market share, I think we talk about share of the stomach. So in today's day and age, businesses have changed, like you can see the way I'm addressing my audience. And I strongly believe that, whether digital is relevant, non-relevant is no more a question. I think it's the new element for the business.
Yeah.
There is no digital versus physical. I think in today's day and age, businesses are phygital,
Yeah.
the way I would put it. Ultimately, jo dikta hai, wo bikta hai. I think online obviously is a means of, or a channel. So is offline, and it's no more omni-channel. I think businesses have become multi-channel. And to be very honest, technology, not just, today selling online is not, food tech for me. That's e-commerce for me. But there are various elements of digital that actually make you an enabler or you a service provider that just helps you to create more convenience for the consumer. So yes, digital as an enabler is a must for business, for growth. So it's like your right hand, left hand. Both are important. Depending on the relevance, whether you're a righty or a lefty, you will give more importance to the other hand. But it is, I think it's two important parts of one human body which are inseparable.
Yeah. Manish?
Hi, I'm Manish Kapoor, and as Sagar said, as in probably if he makes food good, probably we make denim fashionable. So that's our introduction for Pepe jeans. When I talk of as in terms of does the business need transformation or digital transformation, I think the first question that you need to ask is what are you in business for? And that's basically as in terms of satisfying or delighting the consumer. So has the consumer changed? Yes. So if the consumer has changed digitally and is pivoted, as in the business needs to change to be able to give better experiences, to provide unified experiences, and also be able to cater to customer needs wherever he or she wants to experience your brand wants to experience your service, or wants to buy it from. So it's no longer about, as in, like Sagar said, physical versus digital versus e-commerce. And it's another way in terms of reaching out to your consumers. It's another, in a country like India, like some of the panelists mentioned, as in, no matter how many physical points of sale that we open, there's enough and more population as in that we can cater to. And it's very, very difficult to, sometimes the economies of scale don't work, sometimes the dynamics don't work. It gives us another impetus, it gives us another avenue in terms of reaching out to those consumers, being able to service them through our products. And it's a way of life. So I don't know as in whether it's gonna get digitally focused or it's gonna be physically focused, as in time would tell, as in, and it would differ from businesses for businesses. But very clearly, as in, businesses would need to evolve, businesses would need to focus on in terms of how the consumer is evolving, and they need to be ready in terms of those challenges and evolve therein. Again, when I look at it, and it's something that we were talking when we were discussing, I think digital when you look at digital transformation, it's not about just changing processes, because you're looking at as in one aspect wherein you say, as in how do I integrate technology in terms of serving my value shareholders or value holders better. But it's much bigger, as in once you change those processes, you need to look at changes in organization and then build that culture wherein everybody thinks about digital as a way of life. So that's my take on the whole point.
Interesting, yeah. So it's also about changing mindsets, changing the organization culture, changing structures.
So it's a whole 360-degree change, as in it starts from, so I'll say as in terms of, in 24 months time, we've become as in 9% e-commerce to 28% e-commerce, or probably 30% plus e-commerce, because we don't even consider the store fulfillment business as e-commerce business. But the reality is that 9 to 30 hasn't just happened because we started selling online. A lot of changes that happened at the back end, the way we design products, the way we write down those descriptions that you see on a website, the way we shoot products, the way our whole supply chain works. So it's a whole change that made that happen in terms of that change from 9 to 30. It's not just because one fine day we said, okay, we want to sell online and we'll be present everywhere that the consumer wants to buy us from.
Interesting. So let me come to Sabahat and Azan and Vohuman as enablers, as for lack of better word, as service providers to brands and to retailers. How do you see this transformation happening amongst brands and retailers? How do you see it from outside? And how are you seeing this getting enabled by people like you? Maybe Sabad can take this.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sabad Khazi. I head the Intelligent Enterprise portfolio for Nihilent. Nihilent is a global consulting company which does problem solving with a human-centered approach. We are working with a lot of D2C companies, and last couple of years we have seen a lot of changes happening. I'm not saying from an IT perspective, but overall the way the consumer behaves, not just the consumer, it's also the employees, our employees, the great resignation that we have heard about, the Gen Z which is now coming into the workforce, and the changes that they are bringing. All of these, I think, are driven in a way by technology because they have been exposed to technology. Job seekers exposed to these job portals, very easy for them to find jobs. Consumers having the option of seeing so many products available in the market, so many new things coming in. So technology, I think, has driven a lot of these changes. And regarding your question about the need for digital transformation, I think since all these changes have come through technology, it is technology which is ultimately going to address it. And I also agree with one of the panel members who said it's not just about technology, it's also about people, it's also about processes. And now what we are seeing is also about the products. It's anything as a service, which is what is now coming in. That is possible only because we have technology in place. And I'm sure all of you over a period of time will also embrace anything as a service, for example. So I think digital transformation, using digital for business transformation is something that's not just the need, I think it's a necessity.
So as someone said a little while ago, technology is the business.
Exactly. And another thing, it might be sounding cliched, but it is said that every company will one day be a software company. So I'm a believer in that.
Well said. Vohuman? Yeah.
Hi, everyone. This is Vohuman here. Vohuman Bardi from Shipsy. Shipsy is a logistics management software as a service provider that helps its customers solve logistics problems and makes first mile, middle mile, and last mile easier. From a digital transformation standpoint, and I'm loving the comments that are coming from the panel here. It's truly, I think what it truly enables is it allows for the problem of one to be solved, right? So you are now so much close to the consumer or the customer. What maybe digital allows you to do is to really understand that one person in that one state, in that one district, in that one particular home, and really solve for accessibility or accessibility of whatever product that I sell to that person, right? So solving for the problem of one is what I really feel that digital has uncovered. So moving from physical environment, like Sagar pointed out, to actually looking at where people had a 1:many concept while going to a store, you actually have a 1:1 customer engagement platform as you move to digital, and it's solving the problem of one. And that's truly the seamless beauty of it, my view.
Yeah, very nicely put. Digital helps you get closer to your customers. Yeah, very interesting. Azan, how do you see it from Deep North?
Good evening, everyone. So I'm Azan, and I head our APAC offices. Deep North is a video analytics company, and our goal is to essentially bring footfall back into brick-and-mortar stores. We do that by leveraging existing CCTV camera footage within physical environments like big box retailers, fashion retailers, shopping centers, and we leverage our computer vision platform to then provide very clear insights on what the customer is doing within those various environments. So the customer today on an e-commerce journey is being tracked pixel by pixel. If you look at a brick and mortar store, most enterprises only have point of sale information. So we're trying to bridge the gap of when a customer enters the store to then go into the point of sale. Where are the pinch points that they're facing? Where are they spending time? What are the demographics of the customers? How many products are they touching? Is there a big line at the checkout queue? Is that why they're dropping out? Is there traffic in the fitting room? So all of these new data points we're unlocking with our software-only solution and trying to empower those enterprises to run their stores more efficiently to improve customer conversion. So the imperative is, and the appetite is voracious across enterprises that we're speaking to have access to this data. But as we've seen historically, there's a big educational challenge to then change the daily operational workflow of these brick and mortar stores who are used to operating in a very fixed manner. To suddenly tell them that what they've been doing is inefficient is a big gap that we're trying to bridge right now. And therefore, from a scaling up perspective, working with these clients, they do have the appetite, but they need to then build the in-house capabilities to ingest that data and slice and dice it in an efficient manner.
Great. I think there was a very interesting, Sagar, very interesting point which came up in the earlier discussion where Mr. Kohli was here from Jubilant. And I think there was a talk about opportunities to grow, what is the headroom available. And without getting into the whole digital aspect of the business, one of the comments that was made by him was that in India, there are about 28,000 QSR outlets, whereas China has got 19,80,000. That's the kind of headroom that's already existing. Yeah? So why was there a need felt, other than the obvious, about how digital helps you get closer to the consumer? What else was driving that decision for someone like you?
So definitely,
I still believe that there's a very large headroom in your space for you to open brick and mortar stores. So what exactly was driving? What was the imperative there?
No, like I said, today when a consumer comes to your store, a takeaway is an occasion, dining is an occasion, and even delivery is an occasion. Ultimately, QSR is about consumer convenience, right? And that's where QSR's interests are led to. Casual dine, fine dine is more experience-led, but QSR is more convenience-led. Now, if you ask me today, an average Indian eats 6 meals outside vis-a-vis to an average American having 90 meals outside in a month, right? So there's huge scope for growth. I think what's led to this growth is definitely evolution, and reinventing the business model. I think what COVID did is that, the amount of effort that businesses would have had to put to make the entire ecosystem digital, it just made it happen very naturally. What happened is, you saw a lot of solo orders being happening. Earlier, a family, earlier you would order for the entire family. Now you had solo ordering. The same husband, wife in the same house ordering 2 different meals because they were doing it on a regular basis. You had to eat between 2 Zoom calls. You could not go out and, do a working lunch or a working dinner.
Right.
So I think what COVID did is that, it transformed the way we portray the entire app. Today I have a nephew who is 9 years old, does not have a mobile phone, but he uses my phone to order. And my dad, who ideally was never very tech savvy, every time orders from a Blinkit and says, 7 minute mein aa gaya, 9 minute mein aa gaya. That's the fun of it, right? So I think it's just enhanced a larger horizon of audience. And I think businesses would have had to spend a lot to, get this going naturally, which COVID made it in a very, I would say in a very, realistic manner. and made it possible for businesses. So you are seeing evolution happening, you are seeing reinventing happening. So like I keep saying, businesses have to keep reinventing themselves. I think this was a new reinvention. And technology is here to stay as an enabler, as a convenience factor. There's no shying away from it. I think it's about adapting. So like when COVID came, it was about survival. Then it was about revival. Today it's about, I think, growth or about thriving. So you survive, you revive, you thrive. And I think that's where this entire phygital world helps you to get there. And we are opening 250 stores a year for the next 2 years. We're opening 500 stores in 2 years. But are we not giving focus to digital? Yes, we are. Are we not hiring a CTO, which we never had? Yes, we are. Do we have a CIO? Yes, we have. So how can digital help you to, analyze your business better, to promote it better, to know where your cost per click is? I mean, today there's no ATL, BTL and advertising. I think digital is your ATL. I mean, that is what it is, and that's the reality.
Right. Manish, coming to you, since you have a very large network of stores, I don't know the exact store count, but I'm sure it must be over 1,000 stores. Is that right? So
yeah, 200 plus standalones plus almost 1,500 plus sales points.
MBOs, yeah. So, in an environment like that where you have a certain portion of business coming from franchise outlets, how do you see the digital imperative getting driven, by entrepreneurs who become franchises of someone like Pepe India?
So see, basically, as in we need to understand, as in that a lot of times what was happening was that, and still happens sadly in certain businesses, is that we always looked at business through the lens of channels and commercials and intermediaries, whereas we never realized that when I look at a consumer or a customer, as in when he or she interacts with you, he or she interacts with the brand, it doesn't matter to them as in who the intermediary is, and whether it's the brand or it's through three intermediaries in between, doesn't matter. So end of the day, as in whenever you're looking at a business, as in you should look at as to what am I doing, is it right for the consumer? And then that's what translates. So anybody down the line, as in terms of your business partners, in terms of your franchisees, is that am I able to get the right sort of assortment to the consumer? Am I able to give them that right sort of experience? And then again, when I look at from the brand side, am I able to standardize that experience? So I think that's where that digital imperative as in becomes very, very important. And that's where, as in we have close to 50 odd partners through which we work with, especially with the younger lot. We see that change wherein, as in, see, all of this, we also need to understand, as in, there is an investment that happens. Previously, we used to see a lot of resistance in terms of somebody, like Azan said, in terms of, so a simple thing in terms of we would spend hundreds of dollars in terms of, or thousands of dollars in terms of understanding the heat map for our site, but then we never did it for our stores. We are doing actually a pilot wherein we are looking at, as in previously we only used to get data in terms of the number of walk-ins into a store. But if we are able to get data in terms of saying that within that walk-ins, 60% was male, 40% was female, this was the age demographics, this is the, as in the left-hand side of the store, this particular table, they spend the most amount of time on, this is how they went around the store. That's a heat map for the store that you are getting. And that's where, as in, you can improve a lot of efficiencies within that store in terms of how do you merchandise, what do you do, and that's all, as in terms of improves the consumer experience at the end of the day.
All right. Coming to Sabahat and Azan specifically and Vohuman, what are you seeing as trends, emerging trends on the technology side, for example, which you think brand owners who are a part of this panel could benefit from, in the coming months, coming years? Maybe Vohuman, you can take it.
Yeah, so maybe let me take this one, try this one first. One key trend we are seeing is stakeholders within the ecosystem leveraging each other. So, for example, if I'm a courier express parcel company and I do not have access to certain regions, can I maybe form an alliance with a retail conglomerate to provide store access for PUDOs, right? Pickups and drop-offs. Very uncanny relationship? Yes. Is it something which is happening in the market? Starting to. I think the beauty about some of the trends, and thanks to the pandemic as well, that are coming out, is really looking at partners that can complement and finish a process rather than looking at it in a more vertical way, only industry specific. And we are as a logistics software provider, we are able to see this across our customers. So really leveraging the ecosystem intensely. Another example for that matter, 3PLs, right? We have a lot of logistics tech companies coming in this space, catering to retail, catering to food tech. How is the synergy between them? And can there be a joint enterprise view projected using the synergy between these providers, finally to say the food tech or the retail company, which can finally help the consumer understand accessibility to the product. And that's the kind of integration and a combined ecosystem, some trends that we are seeing in the market.
Okay, Sabad?
I would want to think from two perspectives. Actually, one perspective is, if you look at organized retail also, it's relatively new in India, relatively in the sense as compared to the developed world. There is that traditional, the offline retailers, they have their own priorities, and I'm seeing a different kind of trend there. And then there are the new age companies, the D2C companies, for example, the digital natives, as we call them. They have a different trend. The traditional companies, what they are looking at is they have a system where they are able to have a lot of transactional data. They are able to run their basic processes, but they are lacking the innovation because the legacy doesn't allow them to innovate at speed, which is what is required in today's times. So they are looking at a platform where they can innovate, they can experiment, at the same time they can keep their lights on. The second side is the new age companies, where they are used to the best of technology. So whatever new application comes, something is there in the market, they would immediately grab it, and they don't carry that legacy that it'll stop them from using that kind of an application. But what they lack is a core system where everything comes together. I know of a customer who has probably 15 different applications, many of them connected among themselves. A small change to be done in one application results in, months of testing. So the idea of agility itself is lost. So there they are looking at a digital core where they can consolidate everything, that's a system of records for them. Yeah.
Azan, how do you see this unfolding?
Sure. So I can just follow up on what Manish said. Historically, obviously, there's been one-dimensional data like access to the number of people within the stores, and that's been done through clickers or surveys. Now, as enterprises are looking to get more intelligent, what we're trying to do is provide them, obviously, by analyzing their video footage, provide them with real-time actionable insights on how they need to adjust their store operations. So providing data for the sake of it is never useful because people just tend to drown within that. They don't want to introduce another dashboard within their day-to-day workflow. So if you can tell them very simply, there's a customer that's spending X amount of time within a high-value purchase area, you need to send a sales associate out there because the customer conversion rate is going to drop massively if no one's assisting him with that sale. If you're able to say within these hours of the day, your queue count checkout times are more than 10 minutes and you're seeing a massive line abandonment rate, therefore you need to have 3 queue counters within this store. So being able to guide enterprises in a very prescriptive manner on how they need to be more malleable with their store operations is something that I'm seeing people are much more willing to understand. By being able to do that, obviously the efficiencies you're creating are massive. So there's a lot of appetite and interesting times ahead for brick and mortar store transformation within India.
Just sticking to that point, there's this talk about two Indias. There's a India and there's a Bharat. And we've heard this today happening, getting discussed today in multiple forums. Do you see a different behavior by consumers in different markets? If I was to talk about India and Bharat separately, is that kind of trend you see in terms of adoption?
One of my favorite topics. So I think as in very clearly, if I look at the consumer behavior, as in the consumer, whether I look at India or Bharat, it's the same. As in they have the same sort of aspirations, they have the same sort of habits. They're as in because of exposure led by technology, as in they are changing the same way. The difference might be in terms of the geographic locations that they might be living with or the disposable incomes that they have. And therein again, I always say this even a Mumbai has a Bharat and a Gorakhpur also has a India.
right.
So I think that's something that we need to realize that, yes, it is two different set of customers, but if I look at it, they are converging. You might be able to, there might be differences because of geographical locations or in terms of the spending powers or the spending habits, but that consumer is converging. At some point of time, you'll have a scenario wherein it's all going to become one unified Bharat.
Dr. Mohan, what is your view on this as an international brand, whether it's you or Colonel Chandhoke? How do you see this panning out?
When this brand started in India 10 years back, most of the multinationals had what you call a 3-city strategy. They all thought, India lives only in Mumbai, Delhi, and Bangalore. They used to kind of, limit the store openings and other things only to these 3 cities.
3 cities, yeah.
And it took us a lot of time, I had traveled I lived abroad most of the time, and then I came into India in 2018. You'll be surprised, before I launched a brand in my different avatar, a brand called Lee Cooper, I traveled about 100 cities in India, right from Kashmir down to Kanyakumari, all the small cities and other things. My take is, the people in, again, I will say, quote this, urban emerging centers are much more aspirational. And for them, the brand is something completely, they have made it in life, that kind of a thing. And they are completely different, from the city bad boys, sorry for my phrase. And it's a completely different world out there. And that is not exploited well in our country. If I look at my e-commerce business used to be 8% of the total sales about 3 years back.
How much is it?
8% 3 years back. Now it's about 46%.
Wow.
Of this thing. We have grown phenomenally. But if I analyze, like someone said about dissect and analyze the entire data, bulk of our sales are coming from the Tier 2 and Tier 3 locations, actually. That tells you something. Because, the aspirational population of this country lives, quite a bit in the, in the rural, in the Tier 2 and Tier 3 cities. And they don't want any compromise. The product what I create for Mumbai should be similar to the product what I create for someone in Lakme or Ujjain, what difference it makes. I cannot kind of, differentiate that product offerings. And this digital thing enables us that. We can reach to the remotest areas of the customer. Like, for example, Northeast, which is very, very unexplored. It was an eye-opener when I went there. And people are very, very fashionably dressed. And they really want brand. One of the brand which I used to handle before, Converse, it's completely, Northeast is I was very surprised the prices they are willing to pay and what they are willing to kind of dress up. So I'm saying, like, we can't have, we need to consider, like Manish said, India is one country and one Bharat, and we can't have different product offerings. That's my take on this. Thank you.
The digital transformation has helped you to
Has helped, completely to penetrate, and then we can do a better storytelling, in digital platform, better storytelling, explain our technologies, much better way, because people, when they surf, they spend a little bit more time. If your style is exciting, they will, we are a company which, for us, foot comfort is in center of anything we do in our business, because we believe better foot health means better mental health.
Right.
So it's very, very important, because all our nerves end in our feet, and if you don't take care of our feet properly, you're not going to kind of, it's going to tell something on your efficiency. So we can tell better stories, on the various technologies we can explain the digital form. That enables us, and that's a future for us. Thank you.
So that resonates with what Vohuman said some time back. Colonel Chandhoke, Victorinox is not a brand which probably every Indian would be aware of. A very urban kind of a brand is a perception that one has generally. How do you see this, adoption happening in the so-called Bharat, and how has digital enabled that transformation?
Interesting comments from the panel about the India and Bharat composition, and I completely agree with our homework and experience also with India. Here, I would share some interesting learnings. I mean, every organization has learned in the last 24 months faster. I liked Sagar's comment that this learning and this digital roadmap was already penned down for India. It's just that COVID pushed it, faster. Interestingly, number one, I'm surprised to hear that the shoe, something which is to do with comfort, a shoe purchase is doing so well online. And there is a similar experience here. We are a premium brand, and for example, our watches, the Swiss watch segment that we are in is the 40 to 60,000 rupee segment. Now in India, none of the leadership team could fathom that watches which is equal to jewelry. In India, watches are almost jewelry. You know, we buy, I mean, come on, we don't use that chronograph. We are in closed doors, we can see that. Okay, we like to talk about that. I flaunt a chronograph watch, you know. I'm wearing one, by the way.
I noticed that.
So, interestingly, jewelry, which is watches, and we were surprised to see 20% of our sales coming online. I mean, today, pre-COVID, overall as a company, we were 20% online sales, 80% offline. During COVID, we are almost, after the peak of 55% plus, we have now settled at a sustained 30%, 35% digital. But what I'm surprised to share is, we are surprised to learn is that the way the customer mindset has changed and openness to buy is 17 to 18% of our premium watch sales are online. Now that speaks a lot with no return story. Hardly 5% have returned, which means the customer has made up his mind to buy. And these were during the lockdown days because we were not in the bulky cargo. Our shipments could go by air. So this is an interesting mindset change that we've seen in the market. Also with the tier 2, though India and Bharat exist, very interestingly shared that there is a Bharat in Mumbai also, there is a Bharat in South Mumbai also there is a Bharat. But there is no way the Bharat tag means there is dearth of money in Bharat and there is a lot of money in India. There is a lot of money in Bharat, and probably it is easier for a customer to spend money in Bharat. It's easier to awe him or her in Bharat. It's difficult to awe a customer in India as compared to create an awe for a customer in Bharat. So that's where digital has helped us. COVID gave that push and the openness to come online. But believe me, for brands, it has become less expensive to reach Bharat, educate the customer, create the awe, and book the sales. It's become cheaper, actually. It's become less expensive. The tech guys can have a gala time selling their stuff, man. The brands are open.
And there was a very interesting take on essential commodities that Colonel Chandhoke talked about outside some time back, how he managed to convince the authorities that Swiss knives are an essential commodity in India, and therefore you're able to get imports from China easier during COVID.
So our pocket knives and kitchen knives are made in Switzerland. Our fragrances and watches are also made in Switzerland, but our bags are made in our factories in China. And because of the import restrictions, our bags couldn't come. And people weren't traveling anyway, so it was kind of, I shouldn't say a win-win, but it matched. What we did in early COVID days, what we were just sharing is, suddenly we were all in the kitchen knife range. We were all cooking at home, chopping, cutting. All of us have shared pictures of what good, bad, ugly we made at home and shared with our friends or whatever, Instagram, etc.
India thrives on being jugaad, so your thing helps in being the jugaad.
Absolutely, absolutely. So to tap this, early COVID days, we got our kitchen knives registered as essential commodities, which was essential commodities, because you can't cut a bhindi without the chaku, you know. Vegetable is organized by the government, but you need a good chaku to cut your bhindi. And you have a Mercedes or a Corolla Altis or a Camry standing down, so you want a good chaku for your bhindi, you know. And suddenly people were spending more in the kitchen. Suddenly people want to spend more. And that's when we got this registered as essential commodities. And in our lockdown days, we did a business 3x of our 2019 numbers.
So, if you don't mind sharing, what share of your business comes from the online?
So online, even today, our kitchen knives are a good 40%, 35 to 40%. They're settling down because offline stores have opened up. But then the education has become much more effective online. And believe me, when we made the kitchen knife plan, kitchen knife is not a serious category because we all have cooks at home and nobody wants to buy an expensive knife. But then now the mindset changed. People are more open to buy these equipments at home, expensive kitchen knives, 1,000 rupee kitchen knife where you get another one at $100. But we are happy to see this mindset change. And this is continuing after COVID. Amazon and other portals were like, are you sure you want to invest this kind of money in kitchen knife aggressive plan? Nobody's spending money on ads. You are a good partner of ours, and you can go less, go low. In May 2020, we launched a very aggressive kitchen knife marketing plan on Amazon. Even after the whole story is open, today, kitchen knife is a separate category in Amazon. There are 4 more brands who are paying them ad revenue, and Victorinox is still the market leader in Amazon product category on kitchen knives. But thanks to the change of mindset of customers.
Absolutely. I want to come back to Rochita, and she made a very interesting comment outside about conventional business models still thriving and doing well. What is the take you have on the kind of markets you cater to at Sreeleathers?
Yeah. So when COVID first hit, like we were talking earlier, we hadn't focused on our digital platform at all. We were only focused on our traditional model, and we focused on our traditional calendar, which we, in retail world, we live from festival to festival. There's Durga Puja, then Diwali, then Christmas, then New Year's, then Sankranti, then Lagan season, so on and so forth. And because our brick and mortar performance were the top line, like major contributors to our top line, we never had the energy or we never made it a priority to focus on a digital platform. And then COVID hit, and that was a major reality check for us. That's when we realized, okay, we cannot continue. We need to start focusing on our digital platform. So then we went back down to our traditional history, and then we realized what worked for us. And then we went back to the origin, how when my father first started the business, he was the one-point contact for everything. He was the inventory person, he was the cashier, he was the salesperson, he was the one who was the delivery boy. So why did that work? That worked because he was the one-point access to everybody. He was receiving information from all points of the organization. And over the years, we lost that. As you grow, it's not possible for us to be present in all our stores. When you scale, you lose access. But thanks to digital transformation or this evolution, in some way, social media has helped us a lot to reconnect with the consumers, which is why during COVID, now then we had the time to do so, we started focusing a lot on live Q&A sessions on our platforms where we connect with our customers, our people. If there was a comment on, if somebody is like, hey, I applied for your franchisee, it has been 3 months and I have not heard favorably from your team, then I will encourage a member of the head of the dealership department to come on board and answer that person's question. Mainly we do this for 2 reasons. One is because I want to encourage our stakeholders to come and put forward their concerns and questions and comments. Also, secondly, which I think is a more important reason, is the fact that as members of the management, I want to make sure they don't lose in the run for the big picture. I don't want them to lose focus from who made us, why are we here. So that has played a very important role for us, because we need that reality check. We need to know we are accountable to the stakeholders. That answerability has played a very important role. So now that everything is back to normal and we are back to our busy schedules, I think that even though this is a time-consuming effort, I hope we continue to do this, because in the last 2 years, this has proved to be the most enlightening exercises we have carried out.
Sure. Yeah. I saw Dr. Mohan picking up the mic.
I would like to add from the industry perspective, footwear industry perspective. Recently, I had kind of mentored 2 reports for the ministry.
Right.
One is by KPMG, another is from Carisalis. Just to tell you, India is the 2nd largest consumer of footwear in the world. We consume about 2.6 billion pairs. And the per capita consumption is about 1.9 pairs per person per year. It's 5 years back, it was 0.9 or something like that. See, in the next 7 years, what we took the study for, we are likely to consume about 6 billion pairs in the domestic market and 1.3 billion pairs of exports. That's about 7.3 billion pairs. That is 3 times the size of the current industry.
Wow.
Do you think, we have so many retail outlets to sell that kind of a consumption and feed that? So digital is really imperative for us. The e-commerce is going to grow. Another number which I want to give you, with the Amazons in the world and Mintras of pre-COVID, footwear share used to be 3% of the footwear sold in this country used to go through the e-commerce channel. But if you look at it, I don't have the latest numbers, but when we kind of spoke to all the stakeholders, be it a Myntra or an Amazon or our own Agio, where we represent from, the numbers are growing drastically. That is the reason, because there are not enough retail spaces and the consumption will improve, because footwear is going to be the fastest category in the country. Consumption is going to improve. The Gen Z is very fond of brands and they need a different kind of approach. And to cater to that consumption, definitely we need the digital. That's the point which I wanted to make, because we are in for a very good situation next 7-8 years.
Sure.
That's what.
I guess we have just a little more time, maybe a couple of minutes more. One last question to everyone, and anyone can take this. What kind of collaborations are you seeing happening in this entire journey of digital transformation? Some of them are not so natural. And who are you seeing as your new growth partners who in the past you never imagined to be your growth partners? So anyone can take this. Maybe the brands, any of the brand.
See, I'll probably
Manish.
start from as in terms of the value chain, as in when we look at our suppliers first, as in I see that there is again a spirit of partnership that's coming in, because what are we trying to do? We are trying to understand the consumer better. We are trying to shorten lead times. We are trying to, as in again, the traditional methods of forecasting and trend setting, as in terms of understanding trends, is over. As in it's more real time now. So there are collaborations. There is technology interventions that are coming in there. When I look at the whole supply chain, warehousing, logistics bit, there is a whole lot of, again, partnership that is happening. And again, I'll give you examples. So today, instead of saying, as in previously, we used to look at it that, okay, I'll have one warehouse or two warehouse, and this is a sort of B2B or B2C orders that we'll be servicing. Today, what we are looking at and there are partners who are coming forward and saying that we'll help you with technology. You could be flexible. So you don't need to commit as spaces. I've got warehouses in these 6 locations across India, and we'll basically be flexible in terms of saying, changing your as in terms of the allocation of space based on the demand that's there.
Right.
So that's one big change. Then I look at as in terms of the transaction points, like we mentioned, in terms of whether it's online or offline. We've got partnerships wherein we're trying to understand the consumer better. I think the whole journey is as in terms of we are in the business of as in providing better consumer experiences, and there is a sense of partnership rather than working in isolation and being a buyer-seller or a transactional relationship.
Right.
I think those relationships are changing today to be more mutually beneficial, to be more partnership-driven rather than just being transactional.
Yeah. So, Sagar, you can.
Yeah, I think collaboration, collective growth, I think what this digital world seeks for is basically, when COVID happened, we were delivering hot momos in 30 minutes, but people were not able to get essentials in like two days. So we collaborated with Procter & Gamble, ITC, HUL, and we could only do it because Zomato and Swiggy had the tech ready. Right. And we were able to deliver people everything from eggs, milk, bread, to potato tamarinos, to even condoms. It was also our means of survival because, we had 60 stores operation out of the 350 plus. Business came down to 1/10. We needed also cash flows, right? Yeah. Similarly, when all stores were shut, malls were shut, airports were shut, we began to open stores inside Cafe Coffee Day. You saw for the first time a QSR chain tying up with a coffee chain. Yeah. It was about collective growth again. So I think the spirit of partnership has only got enriched and been able to be done successfully because of digital. So for example, today when we open a new store or a new city, we get those heat maps from Swiggy, Zomato as to where Momo is selling, where Chinese is selling, where chicken is selling, and beautiful, we open stores, we put in money, we do cost per click, we do analytical. All this only happens because of the digital space being evolving. And that's why I think collaboration, the spirit of partnership is the way forward. Whether you're from the same fraternity, it's no more about competition, it's no more about survival of the fittest. I think it's more about survival of the most united together.
It's amazing. I mean, your location strategy is, derived from a partner like Swiggy or Zomato. That's incredible. Yeah. Colonel Chandhoke, yeah.
I would really like to share this strong belief of mine here on this podium is that we may have all the tech innovators. India is one of the tech innovation hubs of the world. We have some of the best programmers in India. We may have all the technology to take A to B and B to C. But I strongly believe there is a very strong need for the change in mindset of leaders to actually have a digitally run business environment. A good application is of no use, or a good technology step is of no use when the leadership is not open in the technology mindset of running the business. You know, and believe me, the leadership today that I see is generally are the tech migrators. We've walked into this is what we were just chatting in the room, that we've walked into the world of technology. Unlike the generation of just who are they're born with mobile phones. So they're very comfortable playing with apps. And we've kind of adopted this life. So we will have to think technology and then think of what technology, how could technology be used to better ourselves and serve our customers. And I think this education for the leaders, one will come from an open mind. Our subconscious rigidity is really going to play against us. Thanks to COVID, we were forced to challenge our rigidity in a way. The leadership team has to take responsibility for it. We can't just, shed away that role of ours. I believe one will come from the openness, and number two, you ask the question of who would be your collaborators. With wide open arms, I think the product leadership team, the consumer goods leadership team should welcome the technology service provider world to walk in and share and educate them what could you do with technology. And it cannot be a product sale in India yet, because this generation of leaders is tech migrators. So the technology companies actually have a dual role, and you will win. Why? Because you have to educate the buyer. The value has to be on the core. What you do should come second, but what it can do for your business, because the leaders need that education.
So what's fascinating is, I was listening to all of you very carefully as brand owners. None of you mentioned a payment partner as a growth partner. That's me. That's my business, by the way. So there's a lot of headroom there. I'm going to call each one of you after this session gets over.
Open to always listen to everyone.
Anyway, I think we're running short of time. So what we can do is we can quickly open this up to the audience for any questions. We've had a very interesting and very insightful, engaging discussion so far. If there are any questions, can we have the mic?
Can you hear me? Yeah. So my question goes to Dr. Mohan. Sir, it's an honor to hear you after a long time. I mean, we have heard from you after 2 years now and meeting you in person. So my name is Amir. I represent Green Honjos. You briefly touched upon the technology enabling the e-commerce journey of brands, and how RTO can be reduced, which is it's a huge problem in terms of the footwear. So you mentioned how AR and VR, you briefly touched upon them, is helping reduce RTOs. But do you think that the e-commerce carts in Indian context have had gone beyond a limit to help you in terms of reducing the RTOs? When I say e-commerce cart, I'm talking about having this particular pin codes where there are high RTOs, or tapping in the particular customer and knowing that this sort of a customer has a high RTOs across the horizontal or a vertical or a D2C platforms. So do you think any technology platform is made a headway in that direction, or have you ever worked with partners like that, or you would like to enlighten us upon what is happening in technology in that domain?
See, we have a whole lot of data. We can get, which pin codes has got maximum returns. All those data is available. What is the basic problem? You need to go to the root of the problem to solve it. The basic problem in our shoe industry, the returns. See, the lingeries and footwear are the two most difficult categories. If they don't fit, either of them, you're not comfortable. So that's the most important thing. And India, for example, we have. Since you're from the footwear trade, I would like to share a little bit. We are a multiracial society. If you study our foot shapes, the east, west, north, and south are completely different. In America, it's a learned society. People have awareness. So they have fits, another thing. In India, we decided on one fit, and you adjust your feet to it. I don't want to name, and many salesmen will say, if it is tight, kul jayega saab. If it is loose, put an insole. You will alter your body posture, and you could get into various other problems, like, for example, arthritis or a hip pain and other thing. So the technology is still not evolved. We have tested it, like I mentioned to you in this thing, which is something, it's going to be a revolution to help us in like you take pictures of your feet in different posture and then upload it in a particular site, and which has the measurements of the lasts which you use to make the footwear. So it will automatically kind of, give you a fits number, a number. And when you order, you use that number, then automatically whichever style you select, not all styles are same. See, most of our feet, 70% of the feet are faulty. They are either pronated or supinated or high arch or flat-footed. So you're trying to fit an universe which is heterogeneous with a homogeneous product, right? All the shoes are the same. So you need to take cognizance of the fit, which is very important. If you solve the basic problem of fit, you would be able to solve the situation. That technology has not evolved in India. It's Zalanders, for example, in Europe use it. And there are many, Amazon is just testing it, product testing it in the UK. And if it's successful, it's going to be a big revolution. I thought, I would mention this because I have done some work on it. That's the reason. Thank you.
All right. Yeah. One more question.
Well, this is Vijay from Hyderabad. I own a technology company which is serving into the retail sector. As I've been observing and hearing all the discussions, you're always talking on how to lenient veer towards the online platforms. I do accept that's required, but what are the things that we are going to support to make the brick and mortar stronger and more customer attractive with the technologies?
So basically, as in, if I think I did mention that, as in terms of our whole, as in idea of being as companies, as businesses, is in terms of providing consumer experiences, and very clearly, as in terms of unified experiences, brick and mortar is going to play a very, very important role, while digital, I said, as in will become a channel and has become a channel. It's going to be convergence. So in terms of, if I look at it, there is only, as in terms of, if you look at a physical four-wall space, as in what can you do in terms of being different, in terms of providing those experiences. Again, technology will help you. So think of it, if there's somebody who's walking into a store and that Mr. Ashish came in and he's somebody who, as in looked at our site yesterday, he has got 4 as in products in the cart. And wouldn't you be delighted, as in if the store manager said, sir, these are the 4 products that we are looking at, and this is what, if you want to look at them physically, as in, and should I pack it for you? So again, as in terms of, it's all about in terms of understanding your consumer better. It's all about in terms of being able to convey your message better. Again, in terms of digital, as Dr. Mohan pointed out, it helps us. So if I look at it, I have a 850 average site of store. So there's only so much that I can do in terms of storytelling. But digital helps me in terms of actually selling that story. See, end of the day, while we are selling products, we are also selling stories. And that's where, as in the consumer, it's not more just about needs, it's also about wants. So how are you able to, as in, instigate that consumer to buy more, to buy something different, experiment differently? So those are areas wherein, as in, technology is going to help within those 4 walls in terms of enhancing those consumer experiences. And in fact, just to, as in, on one other question that was there, and Hemant, that's for you also, we are doing a lot of extensive work in terms of reducing returns. There have been, apart from issues, and again, fashion is a bigger issue in terms of fits and color and other things. What we realized was there are the 2 major things. One is that in terms of cash on deliveries, as in cash on delivery rejections or returns are almost 50% higher than prepaid orders. So we are looking at ways and means in terms of wherein we can entice the consumer to prepay. And the second is that in terms of delivery timelines, every single day reduction in delivery timeline actually reduces returns by 18%. So those are certain numbers, as in that we have done some work and we have found out. So again, technology is actually helping us in terms of, especially when we look at reducing delivery timelines, can we service the goods closer from to the consumer? So those are areas which are again helping us in terms of reducing returns.
Fascinating. I guess we're done. No more questions. Okay, all right. You've been a fascinating panel, made my job easy, and you've been a fascinating audience. Thank you so much. I don't want to keep you waiting because the award function starts now in some time. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much.